College football had plenty of news you missed during the NCAA tournament. While you were lamenting the state of your bracket, teams across the Football Bowl Subdivision were kicking the dust off the helmets, pads and blocking sleds with a renewed sense of purpose. This spring, as in all the others, hope has sprung eternal. So, the good news. Your team just had a great winter conditioning, maybe even the most productive conditioning period in program history, and each and every player is in the best shape of his life. Your team is really coming together. The new guys have blended in well, taking their cues from the new seniors who have grabbed onto key leadership roles. You know it's working when the players are doing the heavy lifting, not the coaches. Your team has speed to burn. The redshirt freshmen are coming along. The new assistant coach is really bringing a new sense of energy. That one position group needs help, but it'll be fine, it's just March. That's the basic nuts and bolts of what you missed during the spring while focusing all of your attention on Villanova's march to the national championship. But to be more specific, here are the college football storylines that were lost in the noise of the tournament during the first weeks of spring drills. Tagovailoa hurt his hand, but he's okay. There was actual news from the first practice of Alabama's spring. Tagovailoa, the Tide sophomore and projected starter to be, suffered an injury to his throwing hand, Nick Saban said on March 20. A state held its breath. The competition between Tagovailoa and junior Jalen Hurts was always destined to define Alabama's offseason, but this was an unexpected development. Spring previews: ACC, Big Ten, Big 12, Pac-12, SEC American, CUSA, Indy Unheralded, the 10 best quarterbacks in Group of 5 conferences crystal ball, predicting the top 25 college football teams for 2018. It wasn't that bad, or not nearly as bad as it sounded, at least. What was originally believed to be a thumb injury was in fact a broken index finger, Tagovailoa's father told a Honolulu News affiliate, and that his son was injured in a freak accident. As it was, Tagovailoa was back on the practice field taking snaps 2 days later, with tape and a stent wrapped around his left hand. Washington showed off some depth. The first day of the Huskies' spring was highlighted by a conveyor belt of quarterback talent. Between its entrenched starter and several top-of-the-line reserves, showed off perhaps the deepest and most talented room in college football. First, the starter, Jake Browning, is a borderline Heisman Trophy candidate, and with Sam Darnold and Josh Rosen gone he stands as the best quarterback in the Pac-12. The kickoff of drills also marked the Washington debut for Georgia transfer Jacob Eason, who will spend this year learning the playbook and the Chris Petersen method before challenging for the starting job in 2018. He'll have competition for that job, with the strongest contender likely the underclassman who ends up serving as the Huskies' number 2. That may be redshirt freshman Jake Lenore, who at least knows the scheme, but the task could also go to one of true freshmen Jacob Sermon and Colson Yankoff. Oh, and Petersen has another top-ranked quarterback, Dylan Morris, lined up in the class of 2019. The Scott Frost era began. A shift in culture has been underway at Nebraska since Frost's full-time arrival on campus in January, delayed somewhat by Central Florida's bowl win against Auburn and Clayton National Championship. Spring drills brought more concrete changes. Frost and his staff have begun installing the nation's most explosive offense, a process christened by a major shift in practice philosophy. Nebraska is moving fast in practice, so the Cornhuskers will move fast on Saturdays. Accuracy at high speed was the hallmark of Frost's scheme with the Knights. There should be a sold-out crowd at Memorial Stadium for the spring game, held on April 21, but the assembled faithful won't be treated to a finished product. That should be expected. But optimism has reigned in Lincoln since Frost rejoined his alma mater. The same positivity has imbued the first weeks of the Cornhuskers' spring, and few programs were in greater need of some sunshine and rainbows. There was still no word on Patterson. Michigan is still awaiting an NCAA ruling on Mississippi transfer Shea Patterson, a former 5-star recruit who could become immediately eligible for the Wolverines in 2018. If not, Jim Harbaugh will hand the quarterback spot to a familiar face, Maybe Brandon Peters, who started a few games last fall. How key is Patterson? It's hard to say. The potential is obvious. He seems like an upgrade on paper, at least, and has been identified in some circles as the Wolverines' missing piece, a program in need of a quarterback as its quarterback, in other words. So his availability in 2018 is perhaps the defining storyline of Michigan's offseason. Position battles took shape. Penn State needs a running back. Oklahoma needs a quarterback, not that the Sooners are alone in that search. Clemson has several quarterbacks, the Tigers just need to pick one. Georgia needs a new star at linebacker. These situations might not be settled until August, but the competitions take center stage in the spring. A quick rundown: junior back Miles Sanders is Penn State's likely replacement for Saquon Barkley, a spot he can solidify with a strong spring. But James Franklin has options, including a big-time recruit and freshman Ricky Slade, who arrives this summer. Franklin has hinted at using a by-committee style to replace Barkley's production. It's obvious that quarterback Trace McSorley will take on an even larger role in the Penn State offense, now run by Ricky Rahn. Life post Baker Mayfield seems destined to begin with Kyler Murray under center for Oklahoma, but there's one catch: Murray is playing baseball and football this spring, so he's divvying up his attention, otherwise known as a coach's worst nightmare, even if that's not the public line for Lincoln Riley. The Sooners' spring game will provide the first look at how his offense will look without Mayfield calling the shots. Clemson returns a starter at quarterback in Kelly Bryant, who led the Tigers back to the college football playoff in 2017, but Bryant isn't assured of retaining the starting job. So the Tigers' first weeks of drills has this competition in the spotlight: Bryant, sophomore Hunter Johnson, or five-star true freshman Trevor Lawrence. It's an embarrassment of riches. How much does Bryant need to prove this spring? That's the question. The void left by Roquan Smith in the middle of Georgia's defense is probably irreplaceable. Smith was even better than he got credit for in 2017, and will be sorely missed. But that's not all. Kirby Smith's defense needs an entirely remade linebacker core and new contributors in the middle of the defensive front, as well as a few pieces to replace a pair of four-year starters in the secondary. That's all? One positive sign to come out of Georgia's spring has been the performance, off the field and on, of senior inside linebacker Natrez Patrick, who started 7 games in 2017 but missed another 6 games due to drug-related suspensions. Back in the fold since the start of drills last month, Patrick has done everything we've asked, Smart said. He's needed in the middle of the Bulldogs' scheme. Early preseason top 25 for college football.